Hey, I think it's live. Maybe. Alright. I guess if anyone's here, hopefully they say something. Post to Facebook. Refresh that. 5 people watching. Whoa! That's nice. Alright, I guess I'll post something to Facebook real quick. And then I'll start. Okay. If you're here, say something. So I know that people are here that want to talk about the book Dune by Frank Herbert. Let's see. Here. And where are you joining from? All 5 of my friends. Or perhaps students who thought I'd be doing something more interesting. Maybe. More likely. It went from 5 people watching to 3 people watching. That may be the trend for tonight. It went from 5 people watching. That's alright. As soon as, I guess, one person contributes, we can start. Alright. Let's see. Alright. Eric Langhorse. Haven't read the book, but saw the notification. Wanted to check it out for a while. Don't mind me, just lurking. Love this idea. Welcome, Eric. Good to see you. I haven't seen you post in a while. I hope you post again with your history class. Well, for anyone that's here, I read the book Dune because I'm wanting to read more this year, and I knew if I had deadlines and accountability of wanting to do a live stream or create a video by the end of the month, it would help me read. And I was halfway through this book, and I had started it in maybe September of last year, and was able to finish it just yesterday. And so, I guess once some people join, I do want to talk about the actual book for those who have gotten the chance to either read it in the past. But I guess, let me see. Got this going. Welcome, Eric. I guess I already said that, but first live stream, first person to engage in a live stream, so thought I would include that there. Let's see. Post this onto Facebook, just in case anyone wants to join. All right. Well, I guess I'll go ahead and kind of share the things that I liked as far as the first question of the Thom Gibson book club. I think books like this and books like Ender's Game and apparently Starship Troopers is like this. I haven't read Starship Troopers, but one of my favorite things about these books is it kind of takes you into the mind of the character, and they're generally these warriors that are very insightful into the actions of others, and you can see like the things that they're saying are they're noticing the movements of people, they're noticing the tones of people, they're noticing the word usage, they're noticing the movement of their eyes, and I love reading through that because it just shows this kind of, well, several of the characters are that's what they're known for, is having this kind of social intelligence, but I really like reading through that, especially because they're with this book, including Ender's Game, or as well as Ender's Game, it's usually these young men from ages, Ender was maybe 12 or 13, and Paul in this book is 15 years old, to maybe 17 later on, but you kind of get the insight of what he's experiencing, what he's seeing, what he's feeling, how he's thinking about things, and I think that was probably my favorite part of the book. In addition to obviously the story, once you get the kind of most of the groundwork that was laid for what was going on in the universe and in this world of they call it Dune, but I think it was called like Arrakis, And once the story started picking up, I really got pulled into the story. I generally don't get pulled into stories, and that's why it usually takes me years to finish fiction books. So, but I did like this story. But anyone that's here, if you read the book, what did you enjoy about it? That's some of what I enjoyed about it. What else? I guess as far as the big complaint about Dune is the first like third of it is really, really confusing. And I went back and reread kind of just a synopsis of the story earlier today just to kind of see how someone would summarize the entire story. And most of the synopsis was kind of explaining that whole first third, and then like the rest of the book it says, and then he gets captured by the Freeman and leads the people and then takes over the planet, and they kind of just gloss over that because I think that first part is the most difficult part to understand. And so that's it's also, I think Frank Herbert wrote this with the intention that this was going to be a trilogy, so I think a lot of that stuff in the beginning that didn't really maybe end up being discussed or really referred to later on in the book was more meaningful for the second and the third, which I don't think I'll actually read the second and third book of this series, just because everything that I've seen says that this is the best one of the series. But let's see. I guess I can go to question 2 on my own. Hey, I can see your face in the background, Sarah. Oh, nice. Let's see. I did not see the movie. I heard the movie's not very good, but not for the traditional reasons of why movies are not good based on books. I think it was just not a very high budget movie. But I guess that's another question of what you would like to see as a movie. All right, let's see question 2. Oh, that's question 3. What happened to question 2? Oh, I lost question 2. Uh-oh. This live stream's turning to a disaster. Just kidding. No, it's not.
Who was your favorite character?
Favorite character? Oh, yeah, the inter-chapter excerpts. All right, I'll add that in there. Is question 4 also that? The funnel line. We're not to that point yet. Let me change this. This was question 2. Question 2. What were... did you notice... There we go. Pardon my lack of preparation on this. I thought I had question 2. This is the first time I've done the live stream. Foreshadow. Here we go. Okay. So in the beginning of the book, let me center this up. Okay. In the beginning of the book, actually in the beginning of every single chapter, there are these little sections. It's almost like sections from a whole different book. You can't see that. Oh no, what's happening? Oh, there we go. It's almost it's sections from a whole different text. It's like there's these the story's going along, and then the beginning starts with from the collected sayings of Muad'Dib by the Princess Irulan. These were kind of supposed to be foreshadowing and mystical. The question is, did the interchapter excerpts from the Princess Irulan, did you find them distracting or helpful to you? I found them fairly helpful. I mean, I felt it was fairly obvious it was foreshadowing, but I didn't know how far it was foreshadowing into the future, if this was something that was hundreds of years, if this was something that was supposed to be happening soon. One of the reviews that I read was saying that it was actually foreshadowing everything that was going to be happening in the next chapter, which I didn't really catch that, because some of the times it seemed like it was foreshadowing the things of that actual chapter, or just expanding on the things that happened in the previous chapter. But I guess that really wasn't the case. I didn't find them very distracting though. I just didn't really know what they were referring to, and Princess Irulan wasn't wasn't mentioned in the actual story until maybe the second or third from the last chapter, and you kind of get a picture of like, oh, okay, finally this is kind of all starting to come together. And no, I did not notice that they foreshadowed the coming chapter. But if you read the book, what did you think of the pre-excerpts? And I guess I wasn't, even when I found out who Princess Irulan was, it wasn't until I read the excerpt today that I was kind of making some of the connections, because in that whole first third of the book, I wasn't really keeping track of all the political implications of everything, and who was against who and who didn't like who, and there was Iraqis but Iraqian, and there's all these different names, and the names were different. They were really unique. I was reading the last section, and I don't know if it's in every single version, but in at least this collector's edition, there's a section that was written by the son of the author, and it was talking about all the different inspirations that he had from the names, and some of them like were obviously English names like Paul Leto, but a lot of the stuff was Arabic. Some of the names were Greek. Some of the names come from mythology, and so it's hard for me to kind of keep track. Even Duke Leto's tribe of people, I was like, wait, who is the doctor, or what's a mentat, or was the doctor the smart one? Is the men? So I was having, and then I didn't realize till I finished the book. I knew there was a glossary of terms in the back of the book, but almost every term that I was looking for wasn't actually included in the glossary. And I didn't realize that there was a glossary of at least 7 people in the back of the book, which probably would have been helpful. Vladimir Harkonnen, I remember seeing Vladimir Harkonnen and not really realizing that he was also referred to as Baron Harkonnen until about halfway through the book, and that was kind of like a title for him. So that was kind of confusing. And then Count Hasimir Fenring and the Laza something with an L. I kind of kept getting those two mixed up. Leet Kynus. So that was kind of hard, just keeping track of all the names. I know if you've read any of the Game of Thrones series, you're probably used to that kind of keeping track of just so many different characters and so many different houses and so many different political agendas. But I would read it and I'm like, okay, obviously these two people don't like each other, but I wouldn't be able to kind of keep track of all of that throughout the book. But that has been the book was rejected over 20 times before it was actually published, and that was the main complaint of the book. Is a lot of people are like, oh, this first 100 pages is so dense, it's so hard to get through, it's so hard to keep track of what's going on. But once the actual betrayal happens, you know someone's against the Duke, you know that it's the doctor, and once he finally betrays the doctor, and then Paul and his mom join the Freemen, I feel like that's when the story picks up. That's when it's a little bit easier to keep track of everything and everyone, and not to mention the excerpts of the Princess Irulan. A few chapters I actually felt they helped out, and I was starting to feel like, okay, I think Muad'Dib sounds like this prophet, and Paul in the beginning, that first chapter, he seems like he's probably a prophet. So I was able to make those connections, and then when they said, oh, what would you like to be called? And he's like, Muad'Dib. I was like, oh, okay. I was able to make that tie. So that felt good. It's like, I understand things. Let's see. What's our next question? Question 3. What scenes from the book did you imagine as or would like to see as movie scenes? I would like to see the section, the moments when they're riding the great massive worms or snakes, mainly because I couldn't really picture it. I think the little picture that I have up here on this live stream on the top left, that's not the same picture as this, obviously, but that picture actually helped me, like, oh, these are much larger than what I originally read or what I originally imagined from the description the first time they came around in the story. and I didn't really understand like what it was like when they were riding the worms, because I know that there were these hooks, but I couldn't pay attention or really understand the way he was describing these hooks that were being attached. And then I was wondering, is Paul the only one that's riding these worms? It sounds like that several of them are riding them, and how are these worms moving while the people are riding them? So I think that would be really good to see in a movie, or just kind of get a little bit more of a visual. um, I really liked the scene of the Count. I think it was the Count where he was battling the I think he was a slave. He was battling the guy that wasn't supposed to be good at fighting. I think it was the Baron's nephew. Yes, the Count, the Baron's nephew. That scene reminded of me of something from Gladiator, just like this like arena, and everyone's chanting and they want to see them fight, and you've got this weak non-warrior who is hoping to have this drugged up opponent so he can easily win, but then he uses the that secret word that inhibits the guy from being able to even fight back right at the end there. I thought that would be a really cool movie scene. The moment that the doctor betrays Duke Leto, I think that would be an intense scene in a movie. Just the moment he realizes that it's him, and on the other end of the story, the moment that what's his name, the warrior, his warrior friend, let the Count, not Hawat. Hawat was the Mentat. Gurney, is it Gurney Hawat? Gurney, when Gurney thought that Jessica was the betrayer, and then that moment he kind of realizes it, and the way they describe it, it almost seems like he stabs her anyways. Like she stopped and heard a noise behind her, and I was like, oh no, did he still stab her even though Paul had said it's not her? I thought that would be a cool scene, but he didn't. He was just like, oh, I must die because I have betrayed the honor of my king and my lord. So I thought that would be kind of cool for a movie. But I feel like this story could be a three-part movie in itself, because there's so much to it. But then I wonder, it's like that whole first section that's so difficult to get through. I wonder if that's the first movie, like how many people would want to actually go back and see another movie after that. So that's what I thought, would be good to see as a movie. And just the Freemen and what they look like, I kind of imagine, let me pull it up here. I can look it up. Let's see, Dune book cover. I was imagining them looking, actually let me see, what's her name off X-Men? X-Men Blue Girl. What's her name? Okay, never mind. She doesn't have blue eyes. I was imagining someone like with really deep blue eyes, and blue, no white. It's just completely all blue. No, it's the girl with blue eyes from that movie, Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians Galaxy. Let me pull up some pictures. This is what I imagined the Freeman's eyes to look like. Let me just change this real quick. So that how deep her blue, I know that their skin wasn't blue, but how deep her eyes are, that was kind of what I envisioned in my mind when they were talking about the Freeman. But then when I looked up the Dune book cover, they kind of just looked, the few, like this one right here, it kind of just looked like regular eyes, but the white was just kind of light blue, and then they were just kind of black. So I don't know. I guess I don't know if this is more along the lines of what it was supposed to look like, or if it was more of what I was thinking. But that would be kind of cool to see just the interpretation of what these characters look like. And apparently I was looking at something that said, like, in the movie they used an older guy. They didn't use not older, but like probably in his 20s or something. They didn't use like a 15-year-old. which they probably just felt like they couldn't find a 15-year-old that could hold the authority and the power that Paul could possess and carry all throughout the book. Let's see. What's one question? Oh man, why does it keep doing this? This wasn't the question I wanted to do. Let me change it. This question was supposed to be, oh, I'll come back to that question actually. The very last line about the concubines, I thought that was kind of, I didn't really understand that, but I'll wait till someone engages in the chat with me to talk about it. I'll leave that one up there. So I think, what was the other thing that I wanted to bring up? I feel the moment that was kind of like, I was kind of unsure, was after, I was unsure what was going on, was after the where is it? After Duke Leto is killed by Dr. Yue, or when he was like poisoned or whatever, before he was like, when he betrayed him, I guess it seemed like Paul went from like 0 to 100 in no time. It seemed like out of nowhere he already seemed to have this hyper awareness and this hyper sense of understanding people and of being a warrior, and the whole being Gesserit or Gesserit, however you pronounce it, sense. But he didn't seem to demonstrate that to the capacity that he did the moment that he found out that his dad died. And so I don't know if that was just because he was beginning to get the spice into his diet and that kind of brought a little bit more awareness to him, or if it was just kind of like his moment of recognizing, like, I am now the Duke and I have to take this authority up on my own. I didn't understand, unless I don't know if I was missing something or just kind of glossed over something quickly. He seemed to quickly just turn to this role of just having this authority. Even his mom was like, whoa, like just listening to him talk and the power that he had and the force that he had behind his words was it seemed pretty abrupt. And so I don't know what the intention was behind that, but I thought it was kind of odd. Or I just didn't really understand why. Oops. Didn't mean to do that. All right. Next question. Oh, before I get to the next question, one of the things that I really enjoyed while I was reading this book was let me pull up my browser here. I would listen on Google Play to Desert Dwellers Radio while I was listening to this. And it was this really intense, just kind of Eastern electronic kind of dubstep, and I was listening to this, and like it'd be some of the songs would, like when the Count was battling the prisoner, or when Jessica was getting the vision of all the reverent mothers in the past. It added to the experience. It kind of made it this cinematic experience for me, just having this Desert Dwellers radio in the background. It was pretty cool. Let's see. All right, so the next question in the Thom Gibson book club of me just talking about this book is this. I'm laughing mainly because I wasn't sure. I'm surprised 5 people are actually here. I wasn't sure if anyone was going to show up. So let's see. Question 4. What do you think of the final line, concubines will be remembered as wives? Let me read this final line. So this is right after he's married to this desert woman, Chani. And then she's just a concubine, but then Jessica was just a concubine and had Paul. And then Paul has to marry this princess because of political reasons to gain power over this planet and over the universe. And he's there. He's there with Chani, and he's there with his mom, and he's kind of got the emperor in a bind, and he's saying, give me your daughter, and the emperor's like, blah, whatever. And then he's asking, he's setting these parameters, which I didn't understand, where he's like, the emperor has to give me, what does he say? The emperor has to give me, the emperor's entire Chom company holdings as a dowry. And I thought a dowry is what the guy paid to the father for the daughter, but now he's saying that the emperor has to pay him to take his daughter, and he's not only has to give him his daughter, he's got to give him the entire kind of like space. I guess that's like the NATO of space, the Chom company. And then he says he's the freeman of mine, and they're doing this negotiation. And then, what does he say? So I say to you now, Chani says this. She glanced across the room at the tall princess, because Paul's saying, oh, I don't have feelings for this woman. You will be my lover, and she will only know what it means to have a husband who doesn't love and care for her. But it's just only this political thing. And Chani, his concubine, is just like looking at this beautiful princess. And then his mom tells him, do you know, and she says, oh, so Chani says, so you say that now. And she glanced across the room at the tall princess. And his mom says, do you know so little of my son? See that princess standing there so haughty and confident. Then say she has pretensions of a literary nature. So they're kind of alluding to the fact that she writes, because she wrote all those books that are in those little segments before the chapters. Let us hope she finds solace in such things, because she'll have little else. So apparently she writes a lot, and she's going to keep writing because her husband's not going to love her. A bitter laugh escaped Jessica. Think on it, Chani. That princess will have the name, yet she'll live as less than a concubine. She'll have the name, but she's going to be less than a concubine because Paul's not going to love her. Never to know the moment of tenderness from the man to whom she's bound. While we, Chani, we who carry the name of concubine, history will call us wives. And it ends like that. So Jessica was the concubine, and then she was supposed to give birth to a woman, to a daughter that was going to marry this other guy, and then their birth was going to give, their child was supposed to be like the great prophecy child. But then Jessica gives birth to Paul, who ends up being the great prophecy child. And I don't know. I don't know why it ends like that. I don't know what the message of that's supposed to be. Of the lesser is greater than the wife, will be remembered as greater than the wife. I'm not sure. And so one of the other questions, I guess it kind of ties in with this last question. It might be, in your mind, what was Dune about? People, messiahs, ecology. In my mind, I was reading it coming from like a Christian faith. I was kind of reading all these prophecies, and I was wondering if like the author was trying to create parallels to the prophecy of Christ and trying to see where are there parallels or where does it seem fairly different. But it was really hard to kind of see really distinct parallels to that prophecy. Mainly because, as I read in the back, by his son that wrote a little bit about about the work that his dad did, the author's son. He said he really pulled prophecies and religion from a ton of different sources, lots of different mysticism and spiritualities. So there wasn't one religion that he was kind of modeling this after, or one mythology. But what I did find I found it pretty cool, was the Bene Gesserit, these witch women. They in an effort to protect their tribe, it's this space school of these women that are brilliant and have this social poise and awareness and power and control. And some things I read that said that the Bene Gesserit women had these magical powers over people. But the way I read it, I didn't read magical powers. It was almost like this authority behind. They knew how to carry themselves in tone and body language and inflections to command this authority and persuasion over people, which is how I read it. Maybe there was more to it than that. But this tribe of women, the Bene Gesserit, they would go to these native tribes around the universe, and they, like centuries ago, and then they would implant these stories of prophecy just in case someone from their tribe, a Bene Gesserit woman, was there in the future and needed to exploit that prophecy that they implanted in those native people hundreds, if not thousands of years before. So it's kind of like going to a city and saying, hey, there may be someone that comes with dark curly hair and they're going to go by this title, and they're going to have these type of clothes, and these are the kind of people that'll be with them, and spread the story. This is a good news. This is the coming redemption for your people. And then that story gets passed down for generations, and your own people continue to be these curly-haired people that wear this certain kind of clothes and carry themselves a certain way, and they end up finding their way all the way to that tribe, and these people think you're this messiah. Because I don't know, I found it like I've never heard of anything like that. I found that really fascinating, really cool, and I think in the end they called it the Missionera Protectiva or something like that, where it was this mission to protect the name and protect the line by just exploiting the primitive religion of the native people. So that's the lines that I read it through. I was kind of looking to see where is prophecy here, where is messianic overtones here. Let me see if my audio is linked up 30 minutes into my live stream. It is linked up. Excellent. Okay. So that is that's the lens that I read it through, but I was also reading in the back the part. It was really insightful to hear the author's son write about like his dad's experience with this book and all the research that went into it. Years of research, like 5 years of research, and then 3 or 4 years of just writing and editing and revising it. And the research went from researching religion, researching ecology, researching different mysticism and different people groups and different languages. And so he said you could read this book with like your first reading it once through, trying to understand the messianic overtones of it, and then read it all the way through. And again, but look at it from the perspective of like, what are they saying about natural resources? What are they saying about preserving a planet? And then kind of take that perspective on it, because I mean, this Arrakis is this planet that's got this resource. It doesn't sound like it's very limited, but the whole universe wants some of it. So I guess it's limited in that regard, but it doesn't sound like they're running out of it on the island. And they don't have water. Water is such a valuable resource. Water is like, they won't to cry tears at a funeral is to honor the dead in the highest regard, because you are giving up of your water. It's the most precious resource, and they don't waste it at all. They've got these suits, which I also had a hard time envisioning what the suits were supposed to look like. They've got these suits that are supposed to preserve the water. I'm getting a call. Austin, Texas. Because it is that precious. They don't want even a drop to be wasted, even in sweat. And so I didn't really look at it from the ecology perspective, but I wasn't thinking like, what message is this saying about our world and what resources we need to protect. If you're here in the chat and you have any questions or thoughts on the book, let me know. Whether you read it or not, let me know if you read it, or if you want a general outline of the book or something. But I'm experimenting with this live stream format. I'm hoping the more people I have involved in it, and the more I do it, it can kind of become a conversation, more discussion, even though I'm the one with the camera and it'd be mostly people sharing and comments. But I did do, in one of the cards up here, I did do a review of the other book I read this past month, which was Man's Search for Meaning. I just made a video review of that one. But that one probably would have been a good live stream too. So let's see, what are good general, those are the 5 questions that I had planned. Good book club questions. Besides the I don't need ones that are specific to Dune. If you have a good book club question, leave it in the comments. General book club, it doesn't have to be specific to Dune. So what I like least about it, what books did this remind you of? This didn't remind me of a ton of other books that I've read, but it did remind me of other movies that I've seen, especially like Tremors. Let me pull up Tremors. If you've never seen Tremors, It was on Sci-Fi back in the 2000s. Tremors was about these underground worms that would attack people. And so if that is not a complete steal of the worms, and like these are in the desert too. That was the main thing that I felt that was the first thing that came to mind when I saw that there were worms on this island. What else did this remind me of? The desert land reminded me a lot of scenes from Star Wars, and they say that this book is the premiere, the first of the greatest sci-fi novels that were written. Like the sci-fi novel of sci-fi novels was the reason why I actually read it in the first place, was because I've read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I've read a couple of other, I wouldn't say there's sci-fi dystopia, 1984, Brave New World, but this one on a lot of lists kept coming up as like the best sci-fi book. And so I really wanted to read it. I've had several people in my life tell me it was their favorite book ever. And so that was the main reason. I think it's inspired so much in science fiction, not only in science fiction books, but in science fiction movies. But those Star Wars and I guess like the hero's journey is someone who leaves home but then comes back. I don't know if I don't know if it's the hero's journey in this one, because he kind of joins a different tribe and then is raised up as the leader in that tribe, and then kind of uses that to his advantage to take over the world and the universe, I guess. I don't know if it was the universe or that little segment of the universe, but that's what it reminded me of. All right, what other book club questions do we got here? Which characters did you like the least? I don't know if I had a character that I was annoyed with. I guess, let's see. Let's look at the character list at the back. Count Raven. I don't even remember who Raven was. I guess I don't really like the unlikable character is that one Count who wasn't a very good warrior. He was the one that, hello, Megan McClendon, welcome. You're the first contributor of the Thom Gibson Book Club chat room that was reading the book. Eric is another YouTuber that we interact with. He's another teacher. I think he was just checking in on what the live stream was like. But just to give you the lowdown, Megan, I talked about what I enjoyed about the book, which was the insights into the characters and how they thought about things, and how you could see it's like with Jessica or with Paul, how they would be like, well, they would notice how people talk, how they would notice how people move, they would notice the inflections, they would notice the word choices, and I love getting that insight. It's the same with Ender's Game. You get that same insight, and especially getting them from such young people. And then, one of my favorite characters was the girl that Jessica was pregnant with, Aaliyah, and then she has this crazy insight, and so she's just like knows everything. She has the wisdom and the experiences of all the reverend mothers before her, and then when she's talking to the emperor at the end, she's just this 4-year-old girl that just walks in. It's like, oh, I'm not intimidated by any of you, and I don't answer to any of you. And then the Baron actually thought she was a midget, and I think she might have been one of my favorite characters. Obviously, Paul is a good character that I like, but something that I was reading was a lot of people. Frank Herbert, he wanted to make the characters more real to life. And in the trilogy, I think Paul kind of takes a turn. He doesn't maintain this status of just hero and always looking to do good, but you kind of see allusions to the end of the book where it's like, even Gurney, is that his name? Gurney was like, when Paul was like, oh, what's the damage and what can be replaced with money? And then Gurney's like, well, I mean, everything but the lives, I guess. And so he was kind of like, since when is the things replaced by money the most important thing after a battle? But yeah, I think Paul's a favorite character, but later in the trilogy, in in 2 and 3, he becomes a little bit more like a real person who becomes to power, and then is he kind of has a downfall. He kind of has these dark parts to him. And I haven't read the other 2 books, but I can see how I think Frank Herbert got a lot. Yeah, Frank Herbert got a lot of backlash for that, because he's kind of ruining the character. People love Paul so much, and they don't want to see him go down this path where he's kind of the jerk, or he's doing the stuff that you don't want to see him do. You want to see him prevail and do good. And but those were some of my thoughts on that. Megan, let's see. I've got a couple of questions for you. What did you think of the final line, concubines will be remembered as wives? Or, if you don't want to answer that one, what scenes of the book did you imagine or would like to see as a movie? I was talking about earlier, before you got here, how it reminded me a lot of Tremors. I don't know if you ever saw Tremors on Sci-Fi, but it was worms that would go underground and then come up and eat people. But apparently these Tremors in the Sci-Fi movie, that's what I had in my mind before I actually read the book. And once I saw the cover that I have up here in the top left here, I was like, okay, these are much bigger than the Tremors that were in the sci-fi video. They're sci-fi movies. I also wanted to see what this writing of, and they called them the Makers also. It was confusing. Everyone had like 3 names: Baron, Vladimir, Harkonnen, Count, Renin, Robin. Yeah. I wanted to see what it would look like to actually ride these things. If it was just one person, it was multiple people, that would have been cool. All right. Maybe while you draft some of your answers, I'll take a look. Okay, that last line has stuck with me more than I expected. Oh man, I was talking about how I didn't really understand it, and then I was trying to think through, okay, why would Jessica say that? Why would that be the end of the line? The concubine. Jessica was a concubine. Chani's the concubine. Chani's the one that's going to get loved. Jessica was the one that gets loved. Is this just a message of the kind of like paralleling the least of these will become the greatest of these, or the servant will be the great, those who are servants will be considered great among you? I wasn't sure, and I was like, why end it with that? I honestly thought Paul was going to die, because especially in that last battle, you weren't here, but I was telling everyone that I was listening to Desert Dwellers Radio whenever I was reading the book, so it would be like the final battle was like this kind of music right here. Hold on. This like intense desert music. Maybe I'll just leave this going while we continue this discussion. I thought this was the perfect playlist though for this book. It's like these battles and these psychedelic trips that people were having when they're experiencing the spice, and bringing in the worlds and lifetimes of insight and wisdom and experiences. Desert Dwellers Radio on Google Play. Okay, I'll pause it. There we go. Alright. So, other questions here. I had a few other ones here. Yeah, that was that final line, what the concubines. I'll leave that one up there because that one, I'd like to hear what other people have to think about that one. Share your I don't annotate. It says I'm looking at another website because I have some Dune related questions, but I'm looking at another website that's talking about great book club questions. It says share a favorite quote from the book. Why did this quote stand out? And I don't like to annotate my fiction books. I annotate nonfiction all over the place. There's like writing and notes and all sorts of thing in my nonfiction books, but I just don't want to. I don't want to. If I ever reread this, I don't want to come back and then see my old notes or see my bracketed stuff. I just want to be able to read it with new eyes without tainting it of what I thought was important the first time. But I know there's like value in like seeing what you thought was important the first time. So I don't have a favorite quote. My favorite quotes, my favorite types of things that were in there were were just like what I said earlier when Jessica or when Paul would say, like, the way he said that had the smallest tone of frustration, but he knew that he couldn't do anything about it, so he just walked away. And like, I liked those things, 'cause I like those little insights of like, oh, I can totally hear how that would be said. It brings that part of the, I don't know, it paints the picture so much more clearly when you get those types of insights. So those were some of my favorite quotes in the book. Let's see. Would you read another book by this author? Why or why not? Okay. So Megan McClendon. I do think Jessica's deal with the concubine wife showed the most character development with her. Question mark. In the beginning, she sees herself as just a concubine, ready to step aside, say Leto can wife someone else. But it seems that through Chani, she finally sees concubines are as important, if not more important. At first, she sees Chani as just a side piece, which is sad, but finally realizes that there's more important. Yeah, and then she kind of has that moment of just like, follow your heart, Paul. If you love Chani, then by golly, you just marry that girl. And it's kind of like she knew that it was like, at first it was like, you need to be with Princess Irulan. That is the plan. This is the way it needs to go. But yeah, maybe it's just this like this pinnacle of character development and kind of seeing her own worth. But then it's like, then that almost makes it seem like her revelation, like ending the book like that, I don't know, it makes it seem like her revelation was the point, her revelation of who she was and her own worth and value, even though she didn't follow the path of what she was supposed to give birth to and who she was supposed to give birth to. Her revelation of her importance is the most important, is the takeaway, is the final stamp on the story. And I'm like, I feel like something with Paul would have to be the final stamp on the story. I don't know. But thank you for your insight. Let's see. Yep. This is on a delay, so I'm not sure what you're saying yep to. I think I'm like, what's actually being streamed is I think like, I don't know, maybe 15 seconds later than it actually is. Let's see. Other questions we got going on here. What do you think of the book's length? If it's too long, what would you cut? I don't think it's too short. If it's too short, what would you add? I don't think this is too short. I don't know if I would cut that first section out. I don't know what you would change, because like the characters and all that other stuff is what really makes this book so good, is all these people and the interplay between them. I didn't really understand all of the political stuff. I had to kind of reread some stuff after I finished the book. Before I did the live stream, I kind of read some synopsis of a few things of the book just to kind of be like, let me make sure I've got all this right, because I know Harkonnens don't like some people, but I'm not sure where in line they are with like the Atreides. And then for a while I'm like, Atreides, Iraqis, Iraqian. I thought Iraqian were the people, but it's a city. And so I feel the names, some of the names were too close together, too similar to each other. So I think I would change that. Let's see. Which character in the book would you like to meet? What places of the book would you like to visit? What do you think of the book's title as it relates to the contents? What do you think of the book's cover? Kind of talked about a lot of these already. What do you think of the author's purpose? How original or unique was the book? Do you hear the same story from another person's point of view? What artist would you choose to illustrate this book? Does this book seem realistic? Let me throw that question up there. All right, here we go. Does this book seem realistic? Get a little bit better. There we go. I know that part of it was the part of the intention. I think part of this book, you can kind of look at the author's intention, was similar to a question I had answered earlier. Was if you can read it through a lot of different lenses. You can read it through the lens of messianic prophecies. You can read it through the lens of taking care of the planet. You can read it through the lens of political power and all that's entailed with the politics of ruling and owning and trading. so in the sense, I think it's very realistic in those regards. Some people saw this as kind of like a don't waste your resources, save the planet. Things are valuable, water is valuable, but realistic. I mean, it's written thousands of years in the future. They don't have like computers, which I think was an intentional thing on the part of the Frank Herbert, and I guess that's kind of like I can't. I remember there was something they referred to it with just. I don't remember what it exactly it was and why they didn't have the computers. I can't remember, but I think that might also be one of those like watch out for technology. And so that's, I guess, in that aspect, I could see aspects of this being realistic in a way, but it'll be a while till we're fighting on other planets for a psychedelic spice that gives us insight into the future. Do the characters seem believable to you? Do they remind you of anyone? Let's see here. Highlight that, paste it. Whoop. Let's make this appear. Yeah, I think the characters are very believable. My Myers-Briggs personality is ENFJ, and a part of that personality is they say. Let me pull something up. Let's see what it says. It has to do with ENFJ personality. Let's see what we can pull up. Human metric. I'll pull this up here. Charisma. I have charisma. That's why I'm sharing this webpage. No. They have tremendous power to manipulate others with their phenomenal interpersonal skills and unique salesmanship. So I feel like that's I find sales, I find persuasion, I find personality assessments, I find all of those things very interesting. How do you get someone to do something and make it sound like their idea? And I kind of do that as a teacher all the time. And so being like this as a part of my personality and the things that I find really interesting, I think that's what I enjoyed most about characters like Paul and characters like Jessica, or even the Mentats, who is their Mentats were kind of, I was reading something that says like they were kind of like the first ones that inspired the Spock-like characters of Star Trek, but the inside of into like the way that Paul and Jessica would talk to people, and they would have this power over people to make people do what they wanted them to do, just in the way that they spoke. And like I was saying, in some of the other readings that I was looking at, they were saying that the Bene Gesserit, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Bene Gesserit, Bene Gesserit, I don't know. They had magical powers to make people do what they want, but I don't know if they were magical. I think it was just like the art of persuasion to the extreme and to the max. It reminds me of this one guy on YouTube that I used to watch, named Darren Brown. He would just go around and he had like a show, and he's a mentalist and an illusionist. So he kind of did the same thing where he would literally get people to just give him money, be like, and give them their watch and give them their bus pass and give them, and like, I don't know if it was staged and how much of it was staged or not, but that kind of stuff I find really, really fascinating. And so I think that's what drew me to, that's what I think makes the characters like Paul and Jessica pretty believable. And then characters like Yue, the doctor, where he loved the Duke, he hated the Harkonnens, but he knew that betraying them would be the only possibility that he could get back at the Harkonnens by sending the Duke with the poison to try to kill the head Baron. That sounds like people. That sounds like something somebody would do, or find a way to kind of justify it to themselves. So I don't. The least believable character. I don't know if there was like a character I was like that I felt was just really one-dimensional or really kind of, I don't know, uninteresting. But they were uninteresting people, so I guess that's pretty believable. And do they remind you of anyone? I guess I'm trying to think of who Jessica reminds me of. Jessica, she's this the wiz. She kind of reminded me of the characters on Black Panther, Jessica and Chani, because they were so insightful. They were warriors. They provided counsel, and so it kind of reminded me of those characters on Black Panther because they kind of played the same role to the main character could tend to, I can't remember his name. So that's what I thought. But what other questions do you guys have? What other thoughts do you guys have? What you liked, what you didn't like, what Megan McClendon has shared, what stuck with her. But these were some of the other questions from earlier in the chat. What do you think it's about? People, messiahs, ecology. What scenes do you think would be great movie scenes? I already read that one. And what did you enjoy about the book? Any of those. Let's see. Well, I'm waiting for folks to share their little tidbits. If you were to write fan fiction about this book, what kind of story would you want to tell? I feel I would not even be able to keep the like. There's so many things to keep track of. Like I feel like don't they books have people that make sure that everything stays consistent, like not only the spellings but the relationships between people and the ages of people throughout the story, and like just like a fact checker, like in this world that you've created to maintain consistency. I feel I would have a really hard time, like if I even tried to create any kind of fan fiction of any depth to keep up with all of the things in the universe that needs to maintain the same to make it actually worthwhile. So we are closing in. I was planning on making this about an hour, unless everyone's like, no, Tom, we need more, which I don't think is the case. But I would like to hear any final thoughts of anyone on that's watching. Final thoughts. I don't think I could write fan fiction, but I wouldn't mind a book about Gurney just being a smuggling pirate. That'd be cool. Yeah, I think the only fan fiction that would be kind of cool would be like little offshoots, and like or like Aaliyah in Austin, Texas, like taking these characters and just putting them in like completely different contexts and seeing what happens. That'd be kind of funny. I would say if you've got any questions or thoughts on the book, but also any thoughts or questions on this live stream, because I think this could be kind of a fun way to interact with people about the book. But obviously, you know, people that want to Aaliyah in high school, yeah, she'd probably be like a 90-year-old woman by that point and just be so sick of every single child in the school. But yeah, let me know any feedback on the live stream. If you the live stream mostly has had like 5 or 6 people watching, so some people are just listening. If you were one of the listeners, did you find it interesting? Did you find it engaging? Did you enjoy the live stream? Any feedback at all would be super helpful, because I do find these kind of fun, and this is the first time I've actually done a live stream where anybody was interacting with me at all. So I do find that enjoyable. The 15-second lag kind of stinks, but I think I could probably even lower that with my stream options. I'm not sure. Low latency, best for near real-time interaction. I guess I could probably try low latency in the future to get more on the same pages as people as they're currently writing. But let me know. Let me know what your thoughts are, what you liked. I guess if you found this uninteresting, you probably aren't here anymore, so you couldn't tell me what you didn't enjoy. But I imagine if you don't really care about this book or what I think of it, then it wouldn't be very interesting. But while you type in your comment to let me know, the 2 books, if you haven't seen the video yet, I have 2 new books for next month. Ready Player One. I'm like a month late on this, but I do want to see it before I see the movie, because I think there is goodness in in making your own movie in your head before it gets polluted by the actual movie that you see. Because I did that with Harry Potter. I read all 7 Harry Potters. I read the first 2, then saw all the movies, then went back and read all of them. And so I was seeing all the characters from the movies. I was seeing all of the settings from the movies. And so I wasn't able to appreciate it and enjoy it on my own. So hoping to read Ready Player One. I will be reading Ready Player One. Much quicker read than Dune. And also I'll be reading a book by Dan Pink. I'm a big Dan Pink fan. He wrote Drive, A Whole New Mind. But this one is called When. And this is the scientific secrets, just perfect timing. And what he did was a ton of research on when's the best time to do X. When's the best time to quit your job? When's the best time to drink a cup of coffee? When's the best time to take a nap? When's the best time to schedule a class, to change jobs? It's all, like, he said this was his hardest book to write because it was so research based, and he had to read all these different research articles, and he's not like you know, a professional researcher, so that was kind of a bear. But I wasn't gonna read it until I heard his podcast with Tim Ferriss, and then heard him talking about it, and I found it pretty interesting. And I like him as an author, so I think it'll be a good read. So these are going to be the book reads for this month. I'll either do another live stream, a live stream maybe with both of the books, or a live stream with each, or a video with both of the books. I don't know, but let me read what you guys have to say. Eric and Megan. Eric says, I enjoyed listening. I finished Ready Player One a couple weeks ago while reading it with my 14-year-old daughter. I really enjoyed comparing notes about the book. That's cool. That's fun. Do you guys ever annotate your fiction books and write what your thoughts are? Because I only do that to my nonfiction. And then watching the movie, the book was so much better. Yeah, I definitely believe that. Megan, this is cool. I do wish voices would be chipped in, but I don't think that's a thing that defeats the purpose of and I don't think that's a thing and defeats the purpose of a live stream. Okay, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yes, and we'll try to join the Ready Player One book chat. I like that you're doing nonfiction as well. I guess 90% of what I read is nonfiction, but I'm also reading more fiction. That's exactly why I started this book club, because I never read fiction. It took me 2 years to read all the Harry Potters. My wife's the biggest Harry Potter fan. You probably can't see, but there's up here is like 35 Harry Potter Funko Pops. There's a Hogwarts flag over here, and I think a lot of people think this is my stuff. Megan is really good friends with my wife and also knows how much of a Harry Potter fan she is. And I didn't like that it took me 2 years to do it because I was reading like 12 to 15 pages a night. But I think doing this balance of one fiction, one nonfiction every month will keep me kind of accountable to the deadlines that I've set myself, because I want to be able to do these videos and these live streams. You love annotating. My daughter kept a notebook with all the 80s references in our Ready Player One while she read it. Okay, well, maybe I'll annotate this one. And I guess, I mean, do you just put, I don't know what to annotate. Like, whoa, didn't expect that comment. Like, I know how to annotate nonfiction because it's stuff that I want to stay with, but I guess annotating fiction is probably a lot more of like the reactions or the good quotes that you really want to come back to. So we'll probably just go with that. All right. Well, Eric and Megan and the few others that may just be kind of hanging around, I appreciate you guys sticking around. This was a lot of fun. I feel a fairly successful first live stream. The first time I actually did this as a test, like 2 weeks ago, like everything was way off. Like my voice was coming in like 15 seconds after the video, and so I figured out how to get stuff kind of like on the screen, kind of cool. So that was pretty fun, and even get the audio from some desert dwellers here. Yeah, get the audio from my computer. Turn that up. Yeah, but thank you for joining the Thom Gibson Dune podcast live stream. Hope you enjoyed it. I will probably schedule either a Ready Player One and or Dan Pink When live stream in early May. In the meantime, you can check out my thoughts on Man's Search for Meaning. Is this too loud? I don't think it's too loud. I'll post something up whenever I decide what day I'm going to actually do the next live stream. So thank you guys for coming to hang out. I do appreciate it. Yes. I think I think I can do that, Eric, because I had to find like 5 different resources on like how to set this up. Because right now I've got my Canon T3i. Let me just show you. I'll show you right now since you're here. Let's see, not window capture, display capture. Okay, so what you can see right here on the top left, this is called OBS, and this is like me controlling what's on the screen. So what I had to do was I had for camera live, this right here, this is, I'm plugging my camera in with a USB, but you can't just plug it in. This is reading the camera. And then this app called CamTwist pulls that feed and does something called siphon, and then it says where's your source. You're doing camera live. And then when I come over to this thing that pulls, that is actually sending the stream to YouTube, my display capture, I have to say, not this one, my video capture, I have to say it's coming from CamTwist. So there's a few tools that make it a little bit easier, but I had to do a bit of research to kind of figure out how to do this, because I didn't want to do just a regular live stream camera. Let's see, there we go. And then this is what like the YouTube part looks like. And then I also have, there's a microphone right here, just because, you know, I'm interested in just like, I was an audio engineer, so I have that, but you don't need that. But I'll put something together on how I kind of put this all together, because it's fun, and I think other people could get something out of it. But thank you guys for joining. I will catch you guys next time, and I hope you enjoy reading either of these books if you choose to read them. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.